Welcome to all that come here as a holiday draw near. Tonight's tales are about two Christmas demons, one to be feared, and the other has either gifts or punishments for good and naughty children. But first, let me tell you about TubeBuddy. Many of us are trapped at home with this epidemic. But all this time on our hand gives us time to create new and wonderful videos for YouTube. If you're starting out and need some advice, YouTube can definitely help you. It has several features that can really help guide content creators to be successful. You can find the link below in my description. Now on to tonight's tales. The Old Cabin. My family from Germany. I grew up with our father's tales about Krampus. We moved into my grandfather's house in the hills of Tennessee. He had a collection of items and souvenirs from his home country of Germany. I used to think of it all as junk. There was a basket that really caught my attention. It was old, but weaved, so you know it was handmade. It was undeniably heavy. And being only 12 years old, I could not budge it. I grew up with no friends or neighbors. I would explore a lot in the woods. That taught me a valuable lesson. To always know my surroundings. A few nights before Christmas was the night of Yule. On that night, the whispers began. My parents said it was an overactive imagination because I was the only one that could hear them. So after a while, I just stopped telling my parents about it, hoping the problem would go away. Our bedrooms were upstairs, and mine was directly over the basement door, with a strange basket hid among the junk of my grandfather. Christmas Eve, there was a loud bang in the basement. I thought I was being brave, but I would learn I was being a fool instead. So I took a flashlight with me and went to the basement to see what the noise was. I opened the door and saw a strange and eerie light coming out of the shadows. Slowly I crept down the stairwell until I get a better look. Light was coming from that basket. I could also hear moans and children crying. When I got to the basket, the lid flung open. A large hand crept out of the basket. His long nails and black fur covering it. A voice came from that basket, and it called my name. Joseph. It repeated several times in the same hushed tone as the whispers. But soon something else would come out of that same basket. I began to recognize them. They were goat horns, except these were thick and strong, like a ram's horns instead. I was not brave anymore. No, I ran and screamed like a little child toward the stairs. But the basement door that was unlocked before was now locked. And I heard my name being called once again. Heavy footsteps echoed behind me in the dark. But they sounded more like hooves instead of feet. Despite the outside basement door closed and locked, I began to feel the winter's cold air on my back. And the hooves came closer. As I panicked and screamed louder than I ever have before. I soon saw the door snatch open, as my father had heard my pleas. I bolted from the basement into the arms of my mother, my eyes filled with tears. Father asked what happened. I can only say one word: Krampus. Then we heard the door to the basement going to the outside. Father went downstairs but saw nothing. The next day was Christmas, and I never saw that basket in the basement again. But as I walked out down toward the basement, I noticed gigantic hoof prints found in the snow. Father laughed and said it must have been a large deer that came too close to the house in the night. but I knew what it was. It was a Christmas demon. And if Father had not come that night, I would be the next victim in his basket of tortured children. The Christmas hag, Belsnickel. I was not a bad kid. I did have her play pranks quite a bit. After I was around 7, I stopped believing in Santa Claus and all that other silly Christmas nonsense. Now I'm 14. My sister is 8 years old. She is one of the nicest and sweetest kids you'll ever meet. A few nights before Christmas Eve, we heard strange noises outside of the house. My parents were out getting last-minute Christmas gifts, so I got to watch over my little sister. The wind would blow, and the branches would hit the windows and the walls, giving us that feeling that somehow the wind wasn't natural. But what do we know? We were just kids. But the noises continued. It went from banging on our windows to banging on our front door, which makes no sense, as we did not have any trees close enough to the house to hit the front door. But I did lock the door after our parents left. And still the noises continued. They got loud enough as if someone was hitting the door with a heavy branch. This started to really scare my little sister. And I gotta admit, it was getting kind of weird. Then without warning, the locked door was blasted open. As we felt the freezing winter air rush inside. In the doorway stood a figure, a woman with an old dress and thick fur coat, covering her body and hiding her face. I had never seen her around before. Which made the night even stranger. She carried on her shoulder a large sack, and in her hand a few wicked-looking switches from a tree. She dumped the sack onto the floor, and it held assorted candies and cakes. Then she asked my sister if she had been a good girl. She nodded, and the lady told her to have whatever dessert she wants, eat her fill and enjoy. Then the old woman asked me if I'd been a good child too. Seeing how my favorite cake was laying on the floor, I lied and said yes. She smiled at that lie, exposing her rotten teeth. She motioned for me to eat too, as I fell to my knees, going for my favorite cake. That's when she struck me. Hard enough with the switches to sting my back. But before I could get up, she whipped me time and time again. I tried, but the more I moved, the more she beat me up. I couldn't cry. I couldn't yell. As if some spell had taken my voice away from me. I looked over at my sister, who was eating and not paying attention to me. Only when I was laying on the ground, curled up in pain and agony, did the beating stop. She told me I had been marked. I still have time to change my ways before the wicked one comes. If I get coal in my stocking Christmas Eve, he will take me away, and I will be lost. The next few days I need to be nice if I plan on staying with my family. And with that advice, she turned and left. The door locking itself behind her. I had no signs on me from the beating, but those words burned themselves in my memory. The next few days I was nice and helpful, as much as possible. I had heard stories about her. My parents used to tell me stories about Santa and Krampus. They include this woman. She is a Belsnickel. Someone sent to punish or reward kids that have been naughty or nice. If she existed, then Krampus does too. The night of Christmas Eve came. I was laying in bed thinking about what the old woman said, when I heard something heavy drop upon the roof. And moments later, I heard a noise downstairs. Heavy hoof steps was walking toward my door. Clop, clop, clop. In the hallway, I heard heavy breathing. And a voice that sent shivers up my spine. A voice to give you nightmares spoke my name. It leaned against my door and told me I'm safe this year. But next year is not far away. If I don't change, I will be dinner next Christmas Eve. And this is my only warning. I crawled under my covers, hiding, sobbing, and saying a small prayer as I heard the hoofs walk away. Clump, clump, clump. Hours later, it was Christmas morning, and I found candy in my stocking and a note. The note simply said, "I'm watching you." That year, the prank stopped. My schoolwork got better. It improved as well as my attitude. I made a complete change from the child I was. The next year, when Christmas came round again, there's no old woman. There's no noise on top of the roof. And best of all, I did not hear any hoofs walk up to my room. Nor did I hear a voice that will haunt me until the day I die. I hope you enjoyed these stories, and may you have a happy holiday. As always, beware of the Shadowland.